Damn, January. You had to really make me do the first episode of the Square Circle podcast, season 7, all the way towards the end of January. Ladies and gentlemen, Happy New Year. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Square Circle podcast, hosted by yours truly, Marie Shadows. I am still getting over a cold, even on the first day. It's not really the first day, but I guess the first day of the new season of the Square Circle podcast. So, what this podcast episode is going to be about is what happened last year in 2025, the closing of 2025, and where we're going to go in 2026, and some ideas that I have floating around, and what the episodes are going to look like going forward. I have done a lot of thinking, reflection, and just looking back at what we built over the last 6 years and where we're going to be going. And I just want to share that with you guys. So let me just catch you up with what happened in the beginning of January, why I did not put out any type of New Japan reviews because Wrestle Kingdom is definitely very far behind us. No one is really talking about Wrestle Kingdom anymore, but I'm going to continue to talk about it, and we're going to talk about it in different ways. So let me say this. At the beginning of January, I had my wisdom tooth removed, and that was an experience. I don't recommend it. And they did such a wonderful job that even during the recovery process, the area in the back that was affected basically did not hurt me during the entire recovery. The only thing that hurt was my cheek and the gum and the cavity part because I have a cavity in front of that wisdom tooth. Like when it woke up, that was like the only pain. I followed the recovery regimen, the treatments to the T. And just so you know, on the 26th of January this month, I do have a follow-up appointment for the dentist and all of that so I could get the cavity fixed. But regardless, it was a very smooth recovery for that wisdom tooth that they took out. I say that it's a smooth recovery, even though trying to eat and eating very soft foods for a while was sort of annoying. I am way past eating anything that has like mashed potatoes. So like if mashed potatoes is a side, I am just over it. I'm over mashed potatoes for now. So that's what my diet was a bunch of mashed potatoes, eggs, and working up to like solid stuff. So like fish, even though fish is soft as well, but going on to eating a pizza, going on to eating, very solid stuff. Now I'm way, way, way better. So recovery was definitely 100% really, really well. And even though I could not talk about wrestling because I was in recovery, I definitely could write about it and definitely could tweet about it. Part of me just wants some of the content creators in the space of wrestling Twitter, whether you are reviewing New Japan Pro Wrestling or just in general, to really pick and choose when to play up the kayfabe and when to really have serious conversations about partnerships, about story, about how wrestlers are being handled. Not on a outside the ring kind of being handled, but more towards character development, story development, because all of us together watch some type of entertainment and love some type of entertainment. We all have our favorite shows. We all have our favorite books that we read. We all immerse ourselves in entertainment to get away from current events. And sometimes entertainment helps us get over obstacles. But sometimes if you are going full kayfabe when you are reviewing these wrestling shows, it's going to basically feel like, look like, have the perspective of you just want to continue to be within the bubble and not try to do like a well-balanced analysis on things that are happening. And I say this because I want people to start using their true voice rather than the YouTube voice, rather than the podcasting voice, rather than the trendy voice, where they tell you already what you already want to hear, rather than what you need to hear. Going forward in 2026, which is season 7 of the Square Circle podcast, as I said before in the previous podcast episodes, I will be telling you guys what you need to hear. It is not going to be a copy and paste. Oh my God, I saw so many opinions on Twitter, so let me just regurgitate those opinions. No, we can definitely see with our eyes. If anyone is telling you different, to stop believing what you're seeing, because as a human race, we know that it is better to believe what we see. That's why sometimes people have a hard time accepting Christianity, Catholicism, any type of religion, because they always tell you to walk by faith and not by sight. But I think over the years, as we have developed as a human race, we have developed the sense of, I guess, security, but that might not be the right word, but just stay with me. We have developed this sense of, if I can see it, I can believe it. And again, if anyone tells you different, to not believe what your eyes are seeing, tell them to fuck off. Because you do need a little bit of, I can see this as concrete evidence. I could go do research, I could form an opinion, I could form a perspective, and I could see it. You can definitely see, because obviously seeing is a very powerful thing. And then you also need some type of faith that can guide you, because sometimes not everything that we see may be the truth, but sometimes our intuition can definitely be like, hey, that might be true. Trust your intuition, like, remember that kind of stuff. And this might seem like a weird, really pivot, but this is how we apply it to professional wrestling when we review stuff. Obviously, people still say that the AEW and New Japan partnership is still the best thing. There are people on Twitter that will go back and forth with other people and say that, oh, we got all these wrestlers and people know these wrestlers because of AEW, meaning the former NJPW wrestlers before they jumped over for the amount of money that they are getting now. Really, really, really overpaid money. And I would argue that AEW did not make New Japan Pro Wrestling any better. Now, I can also say, and we could also apply what I said previously to the TNA and WWE partnership, where that is turning out to be a wonderful partnership and is done right. And it doesn't feel very slimy when Joe Hendry signs his contract to go over to NXT, where other TNA stars have went over to WWE, like Jordan Grace. It doesn't feel like it's slimy. It doesn't feel like, oh, we're just going to take them. Thank you for having them there. Unlike AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling. The wonderful partnership that WWE has with Pro Wrestling Noah. If anything were to happen, nothing will seem slimy. It will seem like a victory that if you work hard, do what you gotta do, learn from everybody else, and adapt to your character, that you're gonna be a top superstar. And these are the things that we can see. These are the things that we could break down. These are the things that we could talk about. So that's why I say that you don't need to have a YouTube voice. You don't need to have the podcasting voice. You don't need to have the trending voice. So that way, psychologically, the people who are watching you are going to tune in, because that is their type of mindset. They're like, oh, I already know what I believe in. And this content creator who speaks in a YouTube voice, in a podcasting voice, in a trendy voice, automatically agrees with me. And hopefully that bubble doesn't burst for that audience member when you say something different. So this is why I say that the people in the content creating space, you need to find your voice, because when you find your voice, people will come to you to listen to you. Even the ones that have already made up their mind and they're in the bubble, they're always going to talk shit. They're always going to believe in what they believe in, and that's that. But they will tune in because they like to be lurkers and they like to complain about whatever it is. But the point is that I think in the wrestling community, we need to have a lot more voices that won't sit on the fence and then get upset at the IWC when they turn on them or when they tell them, hey, why are you all of a sudden now telling us that we can't have an opinion, but you can have an opinion when we're trying to tell you that this and this and this may, I'm going to include may in this, may be wrong about such and such and such and such. You know, sometimes people can detect the fakeness, can detect when you are overreacting just because you want to get a spot on WWE programming to be like, oh, look at this reactor. We can sense this. Things sort of change, and then people want to deny and stuff like that. So make sure to get your own voices. Don't let other people try to put you into a box, put you into a mode. Even if you see something that's trendy, it's going to die out anyway. You want longevity. You don't want short-term content creation. And you're like, what the fuck do I do? I'm just going to be a streamer 24/7. Listen, if you're not making any kind of other videos other than like streaming, to me, that's not really being a content creator, and that's not really being all round. Like, you need to have some standalone videos so that way people can slow down just a bit, because streaming is 0 to 100. Whatever happens, happens. It's live. We're going to do it live. But when you slow it down to have individual episodes, talking about specific characters, talking about what you liked this week in wrestling, what you didn't like this week and how we can improve it, or what topics you want to talk about that may be controversial. Those help other audience members that don't like to tune into a streamer streaming 24/7. There are people out there that like to listen to standalone episodes, and that will help you with communication. That will help you sort out the noise, so that way every month or every 2 weeks there's not some type of content creator on the wrestling community space going, oh my God, guys, my mental health is so bad. I can't believe this. I'm a content creator. Why are you guys so mean to me? Listen, I'm going through a lot right now, okay? I'm going through a lot. I'm at home. I'm content creation. I'm a streamer. And the chat is just really insufferable. And, you know, we all have opinions and we're entitled to our opinions. But my mental health, I'm going to take a mental health break. This is why you need to somewhat be a streamer if you want to be a streamer, but also make other content so that way you don't get burned out, and that way you don't get the influx of the chat that can be very 0 to 100. It could vary what kind of people come in and talk to you and what kind of comments they're leaving. But if you do a video essay, if you do a standalone podcast episode, it will help balance the nature of the beast that is the audience that you have created. Because in content creation, depending on what you are creating, attracts the audiences that want to come in and chat about it. I have a lot of thoughts, okay? It's been a very, very long time since I decided to podcast. This also goes for anyone that wants to farm drama, that wants to hop on the latest trends of let's clown on Dave Meltzer, let's clown on Vince Russo, let's clown on Eric Bischoff or anything like that, where it doesn't really help the wrestling community space. It doesn't help. The only way that it helps is if you have the same sources and or similar sources that can debunk the supposed lies that everybody loves to say. This person's lying, that person's lying. See, look at this tweet. It definitely proves that this person is lying. That's not how that works. Unless you have sources of your own that can disprove, for an example, whatever Dave Meltzer is saying this week, if you have sources that can disprove it, then that's how you disprove a lie. But if you don't, and you're using other people's tweets and talking about it and adding commentary to it, that's necessarily not debunking any kind of lies. And this might make me public enemy number one. This might get me heat. I don't care. I think that the wrestling community needs a facelift and definitely pivot from trying to do farm engagements to just get the views and the money rather than making something that is meaningful, because eventually any type of clowning on people that you don't agree with is going to eventually run out. And then who are you going to bully next? Who are you going to try to be superior to next? Like, what is the next plan that you have if you cannot make anything original? Now, I am going to give the benefit of the doubt that we all have the ability to make original content, to have original conversations, to not have the majority of the conversations to be talking points, because sometimes those talking points can be outdated. How many times can we say AEW sucks? We know this. How many times can we say that AEW has no structure? We say this all the time. How many times are we going to say something about Dave Meltzer, something about Vince Russo, something about Eric Bischoff, the top 3 people that other people don't like? And it's like, how many times can we say it? How many times can we bring it up without it being repetitive or boring? What value is there in dunking on these people? What value do you give to your audience? Is your audience walking away with another perspective? Listen, I don't agree with some stuff that I see on Twitter, but if I feel like there needs to be a conversation about something, I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to give my perspective. I'm not going to say, oh, they're wrong because whatever it is. We are so quick to be, you're wrong, you're a liar, you're a hypocrite. And most people, really, you know what? Not most people, all people in the wrestling community don't know words anymore. They don't know how to use words. They use grifter wrong. They use hypocrisy wrong. They use liar wrong. They use wrong. And they also like to accuse people of defamatory things. And it's like there is no control anymore. For some odd reason, there isn't. Anyway, the question that we should be asking is, what value is a content creator bringing to your attention by being a bully to other people in the spaces? And I understand that Dave Meltzer is not a home run. I get it. But I'm only using him because he's the biggest person in the wrestling community and people love to clown on him. And I'm like, aren't you bored yet? But I wanted to show that, when does it stop? When do you get your own personality? When do you get your own conversations? When do you get your own voices? If you feel like something is wrong, you talk about it. But you do so in a way where you have the knowledge and you have the skill and you have the research to do it. What happens over here in the United States doesn't happen the same way everywhere else. So whatever metrics that we use, it's not the same across the board when it comes to like UK, Canada, Mexico, stuff like that. Everything's a little bit different. So you always have to take that into consideration when you do research and you want to talk about it. But generally speaking, if you just want to be a bully for the sake of being a bully and being like, haha, we're clowning on this person, haha, we're doing this, haha, do you see how stupid this person is? You're no better than everybody else years ago, maybe during lockdown, that was like, cyberbullying is bad. You don't know what someone is going through. Why are you cyberbullying? You're being mean. Now everything just flipped on itself. So I guess that this is the idea to think about going forward for the Square Circle podcast, is that for season 7, welcome aboard everybody that has been a follower since day 1 of October 19th, 2019, all the way to January 23rd, 2026. We are 7 years into podcasting on the Square Circle podcast, talking about all of this. And going forward, we are going to be chasing the conversations. So what does that look like? Exactly what I did previously in the earlier moments of this podcast episode, where we will be talking about different types of topics. And hopefully when I talk about those topics, they could be like 30 minutes or less, because I don't want to overwhelm. 45 minutes is going to be the most. Topics can range from talking in generalizations about how the wrestling community is. Other topics that I want to cover is this whole stupid notion of women's wrestling having equity. And that came about because John Alba had to say that Mercedes Moné and Willow have enough equity to be in the main event. Why are we putting the word equity with women? Why are we doing that? We don't do that with the men. We don't say that, two male wrestlers have enough equity to be in the main event. We have this conversation like once a month on the wrestling community Twitter that the women wrestlers in AEW need to be in the main event, or just in general that women's wrestling needs to be the main event because they are women and because it has to deal with their skin color. Like, for some odd reason, people don't understand that it is merit that gives you the opportunities in this world. It should be merit. It should not be based on your skin color. It should not be based on your gender, whether you are male or female. It should not be based on any of that. If you are good at what you do, if you get the support that you need, if you're able to sell tickets, if you're able to sell merchandise, you get the spots that are awarded to you. It is after all the hard work, after all of the tears, after all of the sweat, the blood, everything, it goes to the opportunist. If you're not working as hard, then work a little bit harder to get to that spot. But it shouldn't be given because of equity. And by the way, for all the woke people out there, my podcast is definitely not woke. It's none of that. I don't like any of that fucking bullshit. I'm not a feminist. Fuck feminism, because feminism has destroyed the female mind, especially for all the young girls out there. It has destroyed people's minds. It is okay to say that I cannot open this jar of pickles. It is okay as a woman to say that this is a little bit more tougher. So yes, I need a man to open this. Yes, I need a man to carry this. There is nothing wrong with that. Together, men and women are supposed to be an equal unit to get things done. That does not mean that you are weaker. That does not mean that you are lesser. Sometimes we need a little bit of help. Obviously, depending on the circumstance, depending on what you're doing, if another woman is with you, sure, go ask for help. If another guy is with you, sure, go ask for help. But generally speaking, as just, the thing of the sexes, that men and women are supposed to be a unit and they need to work together. So yes, topics like that. On the Square Circle podcast, we are also going to be focusing on tape study. Tape study is where I watch a wrestling match and I break it down. I pause, I stop, I talk about it. I talk about how wrist locks work and how they could be effective, wrist control, everything. We break it down. We break down the match, psychology, character, story, everything. So tape study will be a focus of the Square Circle podcast, and tape study is underneath the umbrella of the Square Circle podcast. In 2025, I was so burned out that sometimes I wanted to create something new to be like, hey, let me make something new so that way people can come in and watch and I get new eyes and I get new attention in a way. But I was completely burned out during halfway through 2025 and I was just pushing it, taking a break here and there. Well, the here and there was after Hogan passed and then after Charlie Kirk got assassinated in broad daylight. That was like the worst. because Twitter became a fucking cesspool because people don't understand their emotions and people just want to just be assholes for the sake of being assholes for no fucking reason. Anyway, and then also losing supposed friends, losing liberal friends. And yeah, sometimes you want a community so bad, you want friendship so bad that's outside of the community that you build sometimes. And sometimes it's just things fall apart when they really don't need to. Rather than being like, hey, this friendship isn't going to work out. So, we're going to go our separate ways rather than bullshit. Anyway, so yeah, 2025 was when I was trying to make different types of things, probably talk about different types of things, and I settled on Discord notes that I'll talk about in a little bit. But I did create Ringology because I wanted something cool and fun that could roll off the tongue and people could wear as merchandise because it's a play off of Barology that No Life Shack has, and I do watch No Life Shack from time to time, but then I was like, oh, you know what, let me not. Tape study has always been this thing that I created, so I decided to just switch it out. The merchandise for Ringology is hidden. It's no longer on my website on Fourth Wall. So we're just going to continue with tape study, and that's what it's going to be. Tape study is open to professional wrestlers that would want a second pair of eyes on their matches, on their promos. I can be your consultant. I was going to say cheerleader. I could be your cheerleader too. And I am going to be sharing a video that I did for a wrestler coming soon. It will be available on patreon.com/Marie Shadows. Now let's talk about Patreon. Last year, I decided to revive Patreon. Patreon is going to be the home for Discord Notes. If you don't know what Discord Notes is, it's basically the Sidecast podcast project. I know that's a lot of words. For talking about off-topic stuff that's not wrestling. So that way I don't get burned out talking about wrestling, especially with the amount of wrestling that I possibly going to be talking about might be a little bit less, but nonetheless, it's still going to be wrestling episodes. But Discord Notes is where I could talk about current events, where I could talk about things that are either bothering me in the current events world, whatever I see on Twitter and stuff like that. And yes, I have been outspoken. And if you're not outspoken and you still want to play on the fence, I suggest being outspoken if you can. I know people have come to me privately to be like, hey, thanks for being a voice for speaking up on certain topics. And I have episodes 1 through 9 up on patreon.com/Marie Shadows. Do you know how many times I have wrestled with myself to accept that I talk about current events? Do I want to put a label on it? No, because it's not necessarily political talk. You may want to define it as that. That's on you. That's not on me. But I will say that it's just having conversations about what is right and what is wrong. When we grow up, we're supposed to teach our children some type of fundamental stuff where it's like, if you did something wrong, it's wrong because of these reasons. And if you did something right, it's right because of these reasons. But for some reason, we're seeing anarchy unfold over in Minnesota, and nobody wants to blame the residents and no one wants to blame the politicians for this, but they want to blame the one unit, ICE, that does its job to take bad people off of the street, to deport bad people back to their places. And they still want to blame the law enforcement for what? They're trying to keep you safe. And you're like, no, that is bad. That is bad, bad, bad. Because my neighbor who has been here for 10 years that didn't decide to get their papers is suddenly somehow your neighbor when that neighbor could do any harm to you. But you'll be like, oh, but he's my neighbor. She's my neighbor. It has come to a point where people will disregard the obvious just so that way they can feel like they're doing the right thing, and they're replacing their emptiness and their loneliness with this notion of doing the right thing by protecting others when they are just impeding law enforcement. And for years, we've known that if you get in the way of law enforcement, you're going to become a casualty. And I have no sympathy for that. And if that rubs you the wrong way, I am sorry. But if you do something and it has a consequence to it, that is of your own action. No one told you to go do it. No one forced you to go do it. You went to go do it because you're brainwashed into thinking, I must protect the bad people from the good people that's trying to take the bad people out of the community. And this was all planned. And I said this on Discord notes. I believe it might have been maybe like episode 5. And somebody on TikTok put it on Twitter. And the guy was right. The guy is a black guy who's in the ghetto. And I believe it was in Chicago. And he was saying that the reason why they put all the illegals in the poorest of the poorest communities, in the ghettos in certain cities, is so that way when this happens, when the cleanup happens, the headlines could get people into a frenzy, and then people are going to believe the lies, and it's just going to create anarchy because other people in other states are going to think that the illegals that they're trying to get out are actual citizens when they're not. So the headline is going to look like they're taking our neighbors, when in reality, they're taking the bad people who decide to rape, who decide to kill, who decide to take over a Colorado apartment complex. Do you guys remember that? Do you guys remember that news story that the gang took over the apartment complex? Now tell me if that was a good thing that they did that, meaning the gang. No, it really wasn't. So Discord notes basically allows me to talk freely about these type of issues and not really try to tell you which side to pick, but just to paint the picture of, listen, you guys have to open your eyes, watch with your eyes. Remember earlier I was saying that you need to believe with your eyes, and anybody that's telling you not to believe with your eyes does not have your best intention for you, because if they're trying to tell you not to believe with your eyes, that means that you can do harm to yourself because you're not going to acknowledge the obvious. You're going to deny the obvious. And then when you deny the obvious and you get hurt, you want to cry and play victim, and you want other people to come in and do the same thing. Do you know that episode on Family Guy where Peter is riding the bicycle and I believe he puts a stick into the bike and then he falls and he hurts his knee and it's like, ow, my knee? That's exactly what everyone around the country is doing, especially those who are denying the obvious. I see it all the time on Twitter. So these are the things that I speak up about. I spoke up about the EBT stuff because there was a lot of stupid ass big platform people that were getting the information wrong. If you are not talking to people who are on EBT, who are on SNAP, who are on something, some type of welfare, program, if you're not talking to them to get the actual details, don't speak on it because you don't know shit. That's the same thing when people who live in New York City versus people who live in Boston. This is the same thing the people who live in the Midwest who's on a farm versus someone who lives a very luxurious life and trying not to suffocate in California. If you are not from there, you shouldn't really be speaking much on it unless you want to talk to somebody about what's happening in order to be well informed, rather than spreading misinformation, rather than spreading whatever you believe and want people to believe. Discord Notes was born out of frustration, and it started from the wrestling community, the wrestling Twitter community, the IWC, where I would see certain type of people go after buddies of mine, and I would jump in and defend my buddy because there is no need to be bullying people. There are times where everybody, including myself, can reword things a different way so it doesn't sound like an attack, so it doesn't sound aggressive, so it doesn't sound something where it can, air quotes, trigger, air quotes, people, because people are going to respond the way that they respond and you have no control over that. So Discord Notes was born out of that. Whatever I saw on the timeline that didn't sit right with me, I went to go talk about it. But yes, Discord Notes is exclusive to patreon.com/Marie Shadows. The Patreon is under my name. My name is essentially a brand. So aside from Discord Notes, there is also going to be JCW Lunacy exclusive watch-alongs and conversations over at patreon.com/Marie Shadows. The only reason why I'm putting JCW Lunacy as a exclusive for live streaming on Patreon is because YouTube is annoying. YouTube is annoying when it comes to watching JCW Lunacy, and it has nothing to do with ICP and their record label, and it has nothing to do with Vince Russo. It has nothing to do with the guys at JCW Lunacy. It's just that when you watch an episode of JCW Lunacy, they put in their own ads. So those ads that they get from different types of companies that are promoting something, they have particular music that they either end up buying the licensing to, or it's AI generated that they put into the show as a whole. So when I'm watching and I'm trying to fast forward, sometimes it gets caught maybe like 15 seconds, maybe a minute, who knows. But YouTube comes in with the copyright because somebody else is going to be like, I'm going to claim this. That's what happened on the last episode of JCW Lunacy, that even though I had disputed the claims, they got denied. And so they just stayed there. And when a copyright claim gets denied, your video will still have visibility. Your video can still be watched mostly around the world, but I cannot make any money off of it. And that might rub people the wrong way. But let's talk about money and content creation for a second, because I had this short little conversation with a very well-known user going by the name of SomeX, and he changed it to SomeIf, and he's no longer on Twitter, and I miss him. But we had that conversation and I was frustrated, and you can go back in my tweets at Marie_Shadows to read it. But essentially, if I am on YouTube, I am very grateful and thankful for everyone that decided to get a YouTube membership and, decided to, if they couldn't do it within their budget, that's totally fine. But I am very grateful for anyone to get a YouTube membership. I am very grateful for anybody that ends up buying merchandise that is all originally created. And I am very thankful for anybody that wants to go over to buymeacoffee.com, because I have that. I am very thankful for anyone that gets me a gift off of throne.com/Marie Shadows. I'm very thankful for anyone that gets a Patreon membership. If you don't know, you could always follow my Patreon for free. If you have a Patreon account you want to follow for free, it's a win-win for the both of us. But in terms of money, when it comes to YouTube, if I'm not making anything in super chats, because super chats is 50% of what you guys send to me. And, again, talking about this might put it in a bad light, might, whatever the case may be, because it's supposed to be taboo to talk about money in content creation. But if you guys don't know, then I'm not really doing a good job of being transparent, because I want to make the options easier for you guys to basically spend that hard-earned money where it is necessary, where it won't take 50% of what you send to me. And I think that is theft when it comes to YouTube. On the membership side of things, that's 70-30. I don't have ads placed yet on my videos because I'm not up there in terms of number wise in order to get the ads to be played so I could get the ad revenue. So basically, if you are a YouTuber like me that just got into the first portion of the partnership, you're basically relying on the 70-30 split of the memberships, but you have to make sure that the memberships are good for people. I don't like to engagement farm on drama, on stupid shit and being a bully, so I can't offer you any type of perks with that kind of stuff, and my content is not about that. My content is about talking about wrestling, talking about issues, doing tape study, doing actual stuff that is in the long run, not even in the short run. And like I said, that super chats are 50%. So if people are like, hey guys, we have a goal to reach $300 within the whole streaming night, they're only going to get half of that, which is $150. And that is sad as a content creator. There's a reason why the content creators that you watch are begging for money, because most of these companies are like, we're taking 50% of this, we're taking, the majority of this, the majority of that. And then on top of that, when we reach the threshold for whatever it is, whether it's $50 the threshold or $100 being the threshold, once that payout goes out, it goes through another set of money being taken out of that, which is the fees that the companies go through. So if you're going through like Stripe, they take their fee. And then if you're going through like PayPal or anything else, any type of service provider, that's the word I was looking for, any type of service provider that is attached to a YouTube, a Twitch, a Patreon, any sort of that, they take their fee. So not only is the particular website that we're talking about, YouTube, taking 50% of your money and then giving me the rest, but the company that it goes through is also taking like maybe 2.9% plus 30 cents on top of whatever it is the payout is. And that hinders someone like me who is still considered to be a small streamer. I really do consider myself a small content creator and stuff like that. It hinders me because depending on what I do in order to get your support, it doesn't necessarily work out. So I have to rely on YouTube having the YouTube shop option for me, because I put my merchandise on YouTube via my fourth wall, so that way maybe you guys could buy some merchandise. However, when YouTube has a copyright claim on your video, and when you go and dispute it and it gets rejected, that copyright claim stays and it removes my merchandise from ever being seen on that video. So that way I don't make money off of the video, because someone has claimed a song that they heard for 15 seconds that's not even mine and not even my promotional, but the promotion from JCW. So it's like a headache. It really is. It's a headache. If I'm not making anything in super chats as I'm going live, I have to rely on something else. And nobody can shame me for that. This is me having an open, honest, transparent conversation about money and content creation. And I have wanted to make an Instagram video saying that the biggest lie that I was ever told is that there is no money in wrestling. Yet people can still make good, decent, comfortable money. I've never been the person to be like, hey, let me get into content creation so I can make $1 million and forget about the people that got me there. Fuck out of here with that. I make content creation because I want to talk about the things that I love. I want to make sure that the things that I love are in a better position than they were yesterday. And that is what I do. That is why I create content. That's why I tell you guys the things that you need to hear rather than the things that you want to hear. Because if you already keep hearing the same things over and over and over and over again, how are you going to grow as a person? How are you going to find new type of perspectives, new type of compassion, new type of like ideas if I'm saying the same things over and over? If I have to repeat myself by saying AEW sucks, let's rally the troops, guys. Like, we know. Aren't we tired? How can we help? Can we do some fantasy booking? Can we do maybe like a 2-week breakdown of just brainstorming ideas of whoever comes into the chat to be like, hey, I think that Jay White should end up being the AEW World Champion. And this is maybe a 2-week story that could work, could not work. I don't know. Let's talk about it and let's have fun doing these matches and making these moments and just making something original. That will bring people to watch you more, because you're not only telling them that you're smart and you're thinking about it and you can articulate professional wrestling and matches and just fantasy book, but fans don't have to label you as a slop tuber. Fans don't have to label you as just engagement farming. Fans don't have to label you something that can put you in a box, have you lose an audience, have you lose the viewership. Because again, if all you're going to do is say AEW sucks, let's dunk on Dave Meltzer, let's dunk on Vince Russo, let's dunk on whoever else, let's dunk on this fan, let's dunk on this person that said this really horrible shit, when you could just scroll on by and be like, oh, mute, block, and move, because there's no reason to spend energy on that if you're not going to try to elevate your community to be a little bit better and be like, hey, this is not right because of X, Y, and Z. You know, we should not be doing this at all. But to do it again and again and again, the point is going to get lost in translation, and people are still going to do what people are still going to do. Why not? Why not try to build a healthy wrestling community by talking and fantasy booking and having a fun environment where you get to hear out other people's opinions, challenge them a little bit more, enter in a perspective, and show it to the world that like, hey, we created a whiteboard, which by the way, I have a whiteboard on my throne.com/Marie Shadows, where, you know, we could do a WWE Unreal writer's room sort of skit where I can write down the wrestlers' names, we could have some fun, and we could try to just fantasy book. Because it's really come to the point where everybody has conversations about wrestling, but it's the same conversations over and over and over, especially in the Twitter spaces. And I'm not trying to discourage anybody. You can still do the same thing what you want to do. But if you're not going to be adding any kind of different type of elements to your conversations, or trying to think of different topics where you can discuss it, rather than being like, hey guys, let's just review the show. Everybody and their mother is reviewing Monday Night Raw, WWE SmackDown, NXT. The people who do great for Evolve, they're in their own lane. I love those guys, okay? I love Dos Evo and the Wrestling Soup for branching out and talking about stuff that doesn't get talked about. And if you live in a particular area and you want to showcase the wrestling that's there, Canada has a really huge history of professional wrestling, and they have Maple Leaf Wrestling, and that is an area that hasn't been touched as much from what I can see, even though my Twitter timeline is completely messed up, but I haven't seen that been touched yet. So basically, I would like content creators to get out there and start creating rather than trying to stream. And when I say trying to stream, meaning trying to be like somebody else, trying to be the same reaction person where they have to look at chat and they have the old face and they're like, chat, am I doing this right? Like, start getting out there, creating your own stories, creating your own lanes, creating your own memorable moments, creating your own community that's fun. Watching wrestling is fun. It really is. It's a whole nother different type of breed and experience, but people will stick around much longer if you decide to do podcast episodes, wrestling essays, where you get to slow it down a bit and control the content and have people think and have people respond and be like, hey, we're going to have a conversation. We're going to chase this conversation about whatever topic it is. And you talk about that topic with the utmost confidence, because nobody can take away your confidence except for you. Nobody can cancel you except for you. No one can put their moral compass or their moral superiority or their high horse pompous personality on you unless you give them permission. You are in control of you. Nobody else is in control of you. When you learn all that, when that's really embedded into your heart, you become unstoppable. You become undeniable because you know who you are. Nobody could take that away from you. I have dealt with all the haters over the past years, and it definitely has taught a lot, eye-opening a lot, and just reflection. And again, you say things with confidence. You always have the ability to be adaptable, and you always have the ability to change your mind when new information comes out, and the right research that you do is sufficient enough to change your opinion, to change your mind. So let's recap a little bit, and then I'm going to shout out the Spotify numbers from last year and whatnot. I know this episode is probably all over the place, but listen, I have a lot of thoughts, okay? A lot of thoughts were kept up in my mind, and this is going to be a big first episode of the year. So, wrap up. For 2026, for season 7 of the Square Circle podcast, we are chasing conversations. Conversations include various topics, and if you want to submit a topic that you want me to talk about, whether that is for Discord notes or for the Square Circle podcast pertaining to issues that sort of overlap with, culture stuff and wrestling stuff, let me know. You head over to patreon.com/Marie Shadows. I will start trying to be as consistent as I can to have threads up on patreon.com/Marie Shadows where you can submit your ideas, and I will look at them and I'll make a podcast episode about them, and I will be choosing. There is no guarantee. I'm going to say that now. There's no guarantee, so that way you guys don't get upset or anything like that. If I don't have enough to say about the topic, then I can't do it. I could do a little bit of research, or, I can place it at a different time, but there's no 100% guarantee. That is just a boundary barrier that I would say to help me, help the content, and help you, just because, whatever the case may be. The same thing goes for tape study. Right now, I have 2 tape study reviews that have been backed up, which is John Cena versus Gunther and Ilya Dragunov versus Shingo Takagi. So those 2 episodes will be on patreon.com/Marie Shadows, because on Patreon, aside from Discord notes, tape study will be living on patreon.com/Marie Shadows. And again, I will have a thread to basically put up either on Patreon or in my Twitter community. If you guys don't know, I have a Twitter community called Tape Study Worldwide, and I will put it up either there or on Patreon, where you guys can submit videos that I can watch and I could do a tape study on, and I could talk about it. So it'll be Patreon and or maybe Twitter. As far as interviewing goes, because I do have previous interviews that I love, The name, the show of the interviews, if you want to call it that, will be strictly named Tape Study Sessions. The ending word might be a work in progress, but it's going to be under the Tape Study banner, because when you are doing content creation, you're creating these episodes and you're thinking about long-term stuff, we all tape study something, whether that's wrestling, whether that is your favorite entertainment TV show, whether that is movies or a TV show or life or something or music. You are tape studying something to get better at it. So I would like in the future to talk to wrestlers, musicians, people who I find interesting in a very tape study, critical lens sort of way. So that way people can understand the creative process. People can understand how some of these athletes, musicians, whoever I'm talking about, when they pivot, what does that mean? Because sometimes when somebody else is trying to be on a journey, whether that is podcasting, being a wrestler, being a musician, learning something new, they pivot, but they are either scared of the unknown, which is totally okay, and they might not know how to accept a pivot. They might not know how to work with a pivot. So let's just say that's just like an example of me asking a question to anybody who's on the tape study sessions about, hey, I saw that you pivot, you went into a different genre. How did you feel about that? Or I saw that you pivot from being a high flyer to being a technical ground wrestler. What was that transition like? What was that? Did you have any fear? Did you think that the fans wouldn't accept you now because you're no longer a high flyer? Like stuff like that, to get to stories, to get to the heart of something. Because again, it's tape study. Everybody wants to try to be a wrestler. Everybody wants to try to be a ref. Everybody wants to try to be a commentator. Everybody wants to try to be a musician, especially a TikTok and or Spotify musician, where they do teasers and put out one single to be like, hey guys, I want to test the water. How's it doing? And then, maybe sometime later they put out a whole album rather than being like, here's the album. Or somebody wants to be a fake influencer and whatnot and be like, hey, this is what I'm doing. Let me just copycat everybody else and not have anything original and stuff like that. So eventually I do want to bring back my interview series so that way I can talk about stories, talk about breaking stuff down in a tape study review kind of way, stuff like that. But there is no first episode yet. In the comments below, because Spotify now has the ability for you guys to leave comments, and also YouTube has the ability for that, and anywhere else that I put this episode on, let me know who you would like to see as the first episode of being interviewed for the tape study sessions. Drop their name below. Speaking of Spotify, I got the new updated numbers for entering into the Spotify partner program so I could get some ad revenue money. And these numbers are 100% doable. So ladies and gentlemen, if you are on Spotify and you're listening to the Square Circle podcast on Spotify, please make sure to not only follow the channel, that helps out very greatly because you can get all notifications directly as a push notification on your phone. But let's quickly go over the numbers on Spotify, which is fantastic. For audience, I need 1,000 people. And for consumption hours on Spotify, I need 2,000 hours. I have already exceeded the amount of episodes. I have 428 episodes of the Square Circle podcast. So currently I need 1,000 people as an audience and 2,000 hours of consumption hours on Spotify. So please make sure to share with your friends and talk about the episode. Again, you guys can leave comments. You guys can interact with the polls and stuff. So that's for Spotify. I want to achieve these numbers because the last time I talked about this, the numbers were ridiculous. And I was like, we're never going to get in there. But now there's hope. We could get in there, guys. We could do it together. Speaking of Spotify numbers, let's go over the 2025 Spotify Wrapped. Ladies and gentlemen of the Square Circle podcast, thank you so much for 71% increase on listening time and a 90% increase on followers. And obviously the top country being the United States of America, where you guys listen to the Square Circle podcast. I also want to go over some more numbers. So my 2025 growth was 466% of a total new audience. What can we achieve in 2026, man? For 2025, again, we had an increase of 19% followers and 71% of listening time. And the top episode for 2025 was debunking Dave Meltzer's tweet about Chris Charlton. When Chris Charlton got suspended and I talked about it, it was a whole big thing. And me debunking all of that with just simple research became the top episode for 2025. Thank you so much for making that episode the top episode of 2025. Listen, 2025, I was burnt out. I always think the worst when it comes to Spotify rap numbers. I always think the worst. And then when I get the numbers and how I did and what performed well and all these categories and stuff like that, I'm just like, oh, we did fantastic. The top countries for 2025 are as follows. Number 1, United States. Number 2, Malaysia. Shout out to Malaysia. Number 3, the United Kingdom. Number 4, India. And number 5, France. Spotify also gave me awards. So in 2025, I was the 2025 Marathon Show, 2025 Talked About Show, and 2025 Most Shared Show. So going forward, which I would love to be in the Spotify Partner Program with everyone's help, because it is a we effort. It is all of us here together, listening to the episodes, talking about it, and even commenting on it, that I think is doable to get into the partner program. And this just shows me that we can. Being a 2025 Marathon Show, a 2025 Talked About Show, and a 2025 Most Shared Show is amazing to have these awards. So yes, those are the 2025 Spotify numbers, which I am very proud of. Again, every time that it gets close to Spotify Wrapped, I basically, I always think the worst for the whole entire year. And then thinking about this heading up to November, because that's when they really drop, like November, December, it's sort of amazing to see the amount of progress that we do. And I think I should start keeping maybe like a log about the process that we do. Progress, not process, maybe process. Just so that way I could look back and be like, hey, we did this, we did that. Celebrating all the little tiny milestones and stuff like that. Going forward, in terms of content creation, like I said, I want to do more little mini episodes of talking about topics that may be controversial. And I want to do more review shows if I can, meaning for like New Japan Pro Wrestling and anything that catches my eye. JCW Lunacy is exclusively on patreon.com/Marie Shadows. Over on the YouTube side of things, you guys will get review shows only. So if you want to come into the live stream, you'll have to join the Patreon for that. But YouTube right now, I guess because YouTube is connected with my Spotify, so whatever I put up on Spotify goes up on YouTube regardless, is you guys will get a review show only where there is no audio from the show, meaning the show of JCW Lunacy. There's no video from JCW Lunacy. I'm going to be moving that over to Patreon, and we can definitely talk about it, have some fun, and rewatch the episodes. My whole thinking is that I will probably do batch episodes, meaning batch review shows, and then we'll watch selected videos from people who want to watch the selected videos. I haven't figured everything out because this is all new to try to use Patreon for big stuff, and I consider live streaming big stuff. And then YouTube, because I'm running into problems with YouTube, get the review shows. So that means that my Spotify will have review shows and my thoughts. The same way that I do New Japan Pro Wrestling, and I'll talk a little bit about Wrestle Kingdom 20. I'm not going to give you guys a full review and whatnot, but it's the same concept where I'm like, all right, guys, we're going to go over this match of Zack Sabre Jr. with Hartley and Oiwa, and they're taking on this team and blah, 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 you know, all this kind of stuff like that. It'll be that kind of concept where I'm like, hey, we're going to talk about this match, and then we're going to talk about this match, and then we're going to talk about this match. Going forward, every match will have its own episode. That's what I did in the past, and it's going to stay like that. Again, any type of live streaming will be done on patreon.com/Marie Shadows. Also on rumble.com/user/Marie Shadows. Also on Twitch, and YouTube might get just Q&A from time to time. I don't know if I want to stream on YouTube if I can't do a tape study version of what I like to do outside of that. And yeah, so everything is a work in progress. Everything is subject to change, but that's just that. As far as the newsletter, marieshadows.substack.com, that newsletter will now be for the Square Circle podcast, so you guys can hear this too. And it will be a bunch of write-ups as well, and videos and links connecting you to other places. Currently, right now on the Substack, I have a little mini write-up of Tsuji's interview with New Japan Pro Wrestling, and he talks about how Bullet Club joined with Unaffiliated and they became Unbound Co., and which is just, I guess, Unbound Company. But I wrote about it, and you'll be getting those type of write-ups on Substack, and then extra content that will send you to Spotify, that will send you to the Patreon, that will send you to YouTube if I create like a video or something, or a tape study breakdown and stuff like that. I want the Substack to remain as a newsletter. So last little thing about Wrestle Kingdom 20, it has passed, but I still want to talk about it. I have a lot of thoughts, especially with the new direction of story and everything that we've seen. I still have not seen New Year's Dash yet. I'm still waiting for someone to put it up. And I know that maybe somebody, one of my haters, would be like, how broke are you? Because they really legit told me that. And if you need to tell a content creator how broke are you, you're broke yourself. So like, stop with those type of stupid ass comments. If you're not going to help out a content creator so that way they can make content that their audience wants, then don't comment if you're not going to be helpful. Anyway, I know that the Twitter timeline is up in a frenzy about the supposed contracts that are ending, and that WWE is very heavily rumored to be wanting Evil to come on into the company. And I'm like, how many times a year do we see the same reports over and over and over and over again? Who is the one stooge that keeps telling these dirt sheet writers to be like, hey, put this out, put this out, put this out? And it's like, you said this last year. You said this 2 years ago. You said this not too long ago. But the timeline on Twitter, everybody falls for it. Everybody is stupid. I'm sorry. Everybody falls for it, and they want to act like we told you so, or we didn't tell you so, or give me the credit for talking about it, or give me this or give me that. And it's like, do you guys not understand what they're doing? They're putting this feeler out to see if like there is buzz around this person. And a lot of people were saying who about Evil. And it's like, who's the one person consistently talking about New Japan Pro Wrestling in the good, the bad, the ugly, and even talking about House of Torture and Evil? And how many times have I had videos about Evil versus John Moxley, or Evil versus this person, Evil versus Tanahashi, and talking about Evil and putting Evil on a pedestal because he's a damn good wrestler. Me, Marie Shadows, okay? I have been the one that's consistently talking about it, and everybody on the timeline wants to do the engagement farming that I was talking about earlier, and it's like, you guys have me. Stop trying to rile up the people on the internet to make them angry just so that way you can get the clout. And instead, tag me and have me explain who Evil is. You have people you know in the community, but the community still wants to be shit rather than being a diamond. But then again, like I said earlier, you can't control how people either say things, you can't control what people post, you can't control what people want to do because it's so easy. It's so easy to be negative. It's so easy to be a engagement farmer just so that way you could get the clicks, just so you could get people to say some shit to you and whatnot. And it's like, why not just be a better example? And I understand that the algorithm on Twitter is completely fucking broken right now. I totally get it. And I know that across the board, all algorithms basically reward negativity, and they're not going to reward something that is positive or that is educational. But then again, we could try on X because X likes freedom of speech. So you could probably try it to do something educational and or positive and see the results. But then again, negativity is always going to win. And I hate that we have to abide by this stupid algorithm bullshit of, hey guys, I don't know who Evil is. Who Evil? Who Nakamura? Who Okada? Who Tanahashi? Like, give it a rest. Give it a rest about trying to do that. Who's this person? Who's that person? You know people in the community who have knowledge on these people, and you don't want to tag them, and you don't want to have a conversation about it, and you don't want the masses to get smart. You just want the anger so that way your tweet can boost up and be in front of everybody. And then it's like, oh well, it's a tweet, it's not really that serious. Why are you treating it so seriously? Because something needs to change, especially in 2026, especially in the content creation world. And I know that I am asking for a lot because people don't want to follow suit. People are so in tune to their own routine that they don't see that it's breaking them, that they don't see that it is hurting the environment that they're trying to create. And sooner or later, they're going to wonder why they're on an island of their own and not on an island of a community where we can all be friends, where we can all have a conversation, where we could all make ourselves better in the ambitions that we put forth, that support where people are like, hey, I got you. Hey, you got this. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about that mean comment. You'll be okay. You talk the truth most of the time. And by the way, if you're wondering where all this is coming from, this is not negativity. This is not me being bitter at all. This is just a frustration that has been building, and just watching how things are changing on the timeline, whether that is what we're currently dealing with Minnesota being fucking stupid and wrestling Twitter still being fucking stupid, that nobody is changing, nobody wants to change. And the internet is the town square that you come to just get that anger out and not doing anything productive and not trying to change your situation so that way when you come to the town square, you don't have to unload onto everybody else, so that way you could feel better that you expelled that negative energy and then it affects somebody else, and it's a never-ending cycle. It's a never-ending loop. And, I always wanted the wrestling community to sort of work together. And I know that not all personalities, not all thought patterns are going to mesh very, very well together. But isn't the beauty in conversation supposed to be the fact that we are different? We can probably agree with something and have some type of common ground, some commonality. And despite differences in other things, wrestling should be the one thing where it's a constant, where it's like, yeah, we agree with this, but way too many people want to be your parent. Way too many people want to be your authority. Way too many people want to be your moral compass, to be like, you have to disown this. You have to cancel this. This isn't any good. And I know I keep ranting, but I just want to say that for the past couple of days, everybody who's been talking about the one controversial picture of Marty Scurll and Hangman Adam Page, everyone is getting the story wrong about the Me Too situation that included Marty Scurll. Everyone is getting it wrong. From all the screenshots I have been seeing of people talking about the situation, about what happened, you guys are getting the story wrong. And I'm here just laughing at how bad the story is, but I just need people to relax a little bit, because if somebody does something inappropriately one time, it should not be grounds for let's immediately blackball this person, because that is wrong. If this person has a history of continuing to do the inappropriately bad behavior, action, if they have a history to do it over and over and over and over and over again, where both parties are drunk and they do it over and over and over again, then that causes the reaction and the consequences of, we don't need this person here. This person needs help. What Marty did, if you guys actually remember the story, and I might have to make a mini podcast episode about it, I will have to try to find all the correct information, because the victim in this, she's fine. She forgave him and she moved on. He moved on, even though he said that he forgot about this happened, because again, both of them were drunk, but it did not happen in a bar. It happened at a wrestling event, but nothing truly happened. Nothing went so far, because you know what? It's not even that big of a story. I don't even need to make a episode about it. I could just say it here because I remember it. The girl, the victim in question, like I said, forgave Marty. She remembered what happened. It was a wrestling event. Marty was in town. The promoter was in town. They're watching this wrestling event. It's over in the UK. Keep in mind that the UK, their consent laws is age 16. And I believe that she was like 16, 17. One of those two numbers. But anyway, this young girl is at the wrestling event helping out. She's probably a stagehand. She's probably learning the business and stuff like that. And the promoter, in her own words, said that the promoter was serving her drinks. The promoter was the one being the catalyst. Now, both the girl and Marty were drunk. And obviously, Marty was being flirty. And, you know, they basically went back to his place, but the girl was smart by telling her friend, hey, I'm going to go with Marty to blah, 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 you know, here are the keys. And basically the girl, Marty, went to wherever they went to, and things just happened, but it didn't go on for, you know, the full extent of what happened until her friend came over. And her friend was like, nah, we're not doing this. I'm going to go take her home. And that was the extent of the victim's story. It's probably somewhere on Twitter that you can find, because I had to read through almost all of the Me Too stuff. So I sort of remember like these stories. Nothing went further than a little tiny bit of action. And I know this isn't going to sit right with people, because people want somebody to blame wholeheartedly. But again, two people were drunk. When you're drunk, stuff starts to feel good, to feel right, and you don't have the same ability to be like, this is right or wrong, unless you start sobering up. Should this have happened? No, obviously not. But then again, what parent will allow their 16-year-old daughter to go to the wrestling event unsupervised. And the 16-year-old girl should know better than not to be drinking with adults in the room. First of all, you shouldn't even be letting your 16-year-old daughter go to wrestling events or trying out in wrestling until they get a little bit older. And you teach them, hey, if someone's going to give you a drink, maybe just drink the one, be careful with it. It may be spiked, whatever it is. If not, politely decline and drink water. Two wrongs don't make a right in this story. And again, like I said, in the girl's response, because she put up the story, her own words and notes, that she forgave him, she forgot about it, she moved on. Everybody else move on. This happened in the UK. UK has different laws. And I saw that somebody with an anime profile picture was trying to be like, well, in the UK, we have this underage act thing. I forgot exactly what it was called, but it basically puts all the laws together that essentially a 16-year-old cannot consent to something. But it does not make the distinction that if two people are drunk, technically shit happens. So there's no consenting there because you're drunk. You don't really have your wits about you for that. But again, a 16-year-old should not be at a wrestling event for being a stagehand or being there by themselves unsupervised without the parent. And then obviously Marty should know better, but this was back when, he was younger, and this happened way before he was dating Deonna Purrazzo and shit like that. Now he lives a quiet life and he wrestles internationally all over the world because they really don't care about it. And to be honest, it's not that big of a deal. It really isn't, especially when the victim is okay and nothing happened. The full act did not happen. It did not happen in a bar. So yeah, it is an unfortunate situation. However, no one is blaming the promoter. No one is blaming the girl, and everyone is blaming Marty when like all three of the party people should be blamed for. Her friend should be the hero of the story for stopping anything to escalate to a huge big thing. And then Marty did apologize to her by saying that that was never his intention. He's sorry and whatnot. Now, I don't understand this need for wanting to use words wrong and wanting to just put definitions together and find a loophole so that way your huge moral stance can overshadow everything else. I go by facts. I go by questions. I go by everything else to basically present a perspective of, wow, this is unfortunate and this is wrong. We do not need to be so violent and throw vitriol on Marty Scurll for no fucking reason when other people in the business have done worse. And if you think that I'm trying to give Marty a pass, no, I'm trying to give him a second chance. And if you think I'm just brushing this aside because it's not a big deal, it's really not a big deal. Your parents back in the day did some really horrible shit, did some experiments, did some exploring, and we're going to just forget all that stuff and not live in reality, but basically say that Marty is such a bad person for doing what he did and only doing this one time, because there is no other story other than this one time. Like I said, if there is repeated offenses, then yes, you go and say, hey, we don't want this person here. The same thing that we did with Joey Ryan. Joey Ryan has not been back in the business for a good while because the stuff he did was very reprehensible and it was a reoccurring thing. What Marty did was just one thing. That's it. And it didn't even go very far. So listen, I understand that if people get upset at me, you guys are going to get upset at me. You guys are going to get so emotional. If you're going to be responding to this part of the podcast, keep it factual. Don't keep it so emotional. I don't see things the way that you guys see things. And again, like I said, I had to read through almost everything of the Me Too stuff. And some of the stuff is not even that bad, especially when women are like, oh my God, he touched my shoulder. Oh my God, he gave me a hug. Guys, that's sexual harassment. But yet then if you see a guy that's chiseled that looks like a Greek god, you're running to him and wrapping your arms around him and jumping and wrapping your legs around him and giggling and whatnot. But the moment that you see like an out of shape dude that might have like a dad body and they touch you on the shoulder to be like, hey, just know I'm walking by you, or just very innocently touch you on the shoulder, it's sexual harassment. Oh my God. You know, also, once a female and a male reach teenager, they are not a child. They are not children. They are a teenager that by this time should know right from wrong and should understand consequences and should understand, hey, I shouldn't be following the wrong crowd. Hey, this doesn't feel right. Hey, I need to trust my intuition. So 16-year-olds are not children. Should they get drunk? No, they should not get drunk. Should they do what their friends do? No, absolutely not. But this goes to show you how kids are raised, and kids would do whatever the fuck they want to do. The same thing with adults. Adults would do whatever the fuck they want to do. So if you do not want the consequences of your actions, do not do the stupid thing. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been super fun making the first episode of 2026. Season 7 of the Square Circle podcast is underway by your host, Marie Shadows. Again, patreon.com/Marie Shadows, rumble.com/user/Marie Shadows. I'm also on Twitch at Marie Shadows, and I have a throne. I have Buy Me a Coffee. I have a lot of things. All those links will be down in the description below, including the merchandise that you guys can get. And for any type of ads going forward, I would just remind you guys that you could buy merchandise. You could sign up to Patreon for fun, exclusive things. Again, we're doing things a little bit different. We're going to be talking about conversations. We're going to be talking about topics. We're going to be doing tape studying. If anybody out there wants to book a one-on-one consultation with me, hit me up at patreon.com/Marie Shadows. There will be a one-off product that you can buy for that, and or maybe a monthly reoccurring charge where I could be your cheerleader in your corner for however long you need me to be there. And just know that I will continue to be talking in truths and honesty with integrity. And I will be talking about things that matter to me, whether that is on Discord notes and or on the Square Circle podcast with various topics and what we got to go over. I will be reviewing Wrestle Kingdom 20, so be on the lookout for that. And we're going to be talking about story-wise, United Empire. I have a lot to say about the United Empire. I have a lot to say that our champion Tsuji is the champion of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Him and I think a lot alike when it comes to professional wrestling. I want to be his friend. How can I be his friend? I need him to notice me. I need Tsuji to notice me. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to the first episode of the Square Circle podcast. Thank you so much for being here, whether you are a day one listener or you just dropped in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Make sure to check out the links. Make sure to share with a friend. And I'll see you guys on the next episode of the Square Circle podcast.